little young fella by the name of J.P. Morgan was born. April 17th of 37. Junius Morgan. Junius, a fucking hell of a name, huh? That's J.P. Morgan's dad. He was basically the American plug for the Rothschilds. Did J.P. Morgan or his family own slaves?
They didn't have to.
They didn't own them, but they profited off of the industry. They're going to war. Normally, they would go to the Rothschilds for money because they funded wars. France and Britain didn't want to go directly to them. They didn't want to be associated with them, right? So who do they turn to, Adrian? J.P. Morgan.
Swiss banks?
Yep.
No.
No, J.P. He's a clean look. He's white. He's Protestant. Okay, so Christianity, a big thing back then, right? Yeah. He's American, and he controlled the supply lines of the railroads, the steel, electricity, the banks. This motherfucker went from being the son of a guy who worked with the Rothschilds to being bigger than the fucking Rothschilds himself. Episode 1. So we are going to go back in time, Adrian. 1837. Long time ago.
I think I was like 2 or 3.
Yeah, you remember this era, Adrian?
Yeah.
So 1837. America's still a newborn country. America's still shitting in its diapers at this point as a country, right?
Sure.
What was it, 1770 something when they signed the fucking Declaration of Independence, right?
Who knows?
They came over here in the 1600s to escape England, and then they took over, and then they had to fight freedom off their own fucking country because the fucking Brits, those motherfuckers, holy shit.
Right. Don't forget, massacring everybody along the way.
All that shit.
Hey, details matter.
It does. So at this point, some dude, Martin Van Buren's the president. No idea who the fuck that is. The economy crashes at this. I mean, you ever heard of this guy, Martin Van Buren? I don't know, dude. I mean, you got Abe Lincoln. You got George Washington, Abe Lincoln, Bill Clinton, Bush, Barack Obama, and Trump. That's all I know.
Listen,
but JFK too.
So listen, that presidency is a whole conspiracy in itself because they're saying there was like 5 or more presidents before what's considered the first before Washington. So there's a lot going on, dude.
Got it. It's kind of like, I mean, they were probably whatever the equivalent. They probably just weren't called the president. They were probably the leader of whatever the fuck. Who knows? But anyways, this guy Martin is. The economy's crashing at this point, The economy at this point was like fucking gold and silver and, little bank notes. And I don't even think there were banks at this point. But let's see. Most people, they're farmers. There's no electricity. You're lighting candles. You're riding carriages. You're writing letters. The entertainment's newspapers, church sermons, and maybe an opera if you're rich. Fucking different day back then.
Hold on. One other thing that should probably be mentioned in that, right? So speaking of church, most towns, the epicenter of every town was a church. And every church was built facing a specific direction.
Yes.
Right? So everything grew out of that because church was, back in the day, how you got your information before newspapers and shit came out.
There you go. Yes, you're right. Religion, it's not about Sunday services. It was about power.
Yep.
The church is where you got your news, your community, your moral rules.
Yep.
And it was also where the governments and bankers found their easiest levers of control. Convince people God wants it, then you can tax them. You can send them to war. You can keep them in chains. Wars weren't always fought in God's name, but they were kind of always sold that way. Wow. At this point, slavery was still a thing in 1800, right? But what happened in 1837, you ask? And it happened right here in Hartford, Connecticut, Adrian. A little young fella by the name of J.P. Morgan was born. April 17th of 37. He was born right here in our home state, Hartford, Connecticut. All right, we'll cross the pond real quick. The Rothschilds. You know about the Rothschilds?
Yes.
Yes. Old gods of money, pretty much.
Yep.
Shadowed by faith. They were already titans at this point. Mayor Rothschild, he built an empire.
You don't hear about him much anymore.
Oh, we're going to find out why.
You don't hear about Gates anymore either because he's kind of faded out, but that doesn't mean he's not there.
Correct. Oh, you're gonna learn over the next few weeks why we don't hear about the Rothschilds anymore. So, all right, this fella Mayer, that was his name, not his position. He had 5 sons. He spread them across Europe, and it was the first banking syndicate. London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt.
Nice.
He sent one son in all of these and created banks. They financed wars, believe it or not. Most of the early financial, I guess, kingpins, no pun intended, or maybe there is, financed wars, and that's how they made their money. They financed them, they loaned out money, they made money back, so when there was war, they were making more money. They didn't just fund the governments, they practically were the government.
Sure.
Right? Religion, though, has always hung over them. They were Jewish, so as Jews in Europe, they weren't just bankers.
They were what?
They were Jewish.
Like the Jewish Jews?
Yeah, the Jews, yep. They weren't just bankers. They were also the scapegoats. So there was also a lot of Semitic, how the fuck you say it? I don't know.
Anti-Semitic.
Semitic propaganda was flourished. Caricatures of them were painted as devils.
Or is it semantic? No, that's semantic. No, that semantics is something else.
Yeah, you're arguing little minor details.
Anti-Semitic.
Yeah. Semitic. So they were painted as devils controlling kings, puppet masters, pulling strings of nations. So they weren't the most popular.
Sure.
So the narrative was the narrative of the Jewish banker conspiracy has actually outlived the Rothschilds. And it is kind of what Hitler would use in his propaganda as well. So religion wasn't just faith. It was an instrument of power, a smokescreen for who really was profiting, the people financing the wars. All right. JP. So Junius Morgan, Junius, a fucking hell of a name, huh? That's JP Morgan's dad. He was basically the American plug for the Rothschilds.
Okay.
He's in cahoots. Think about this shit too back. They're across the pond. It's like they can't just call him up like, yo, hop on the Zoom real quick. Like they're sending fucking telegrams and shit. Like, yo, you want to be part of our fucking team over here?
Right. Well, hold on. So actually, in order to really understand this, you got to go back a little bit more and look at the birth of the Rothschilds,
yes.
Right? Okay.
Oh, yeah, you do. Let's just say, so I did do that. And for sake of time, what I'll tell you is the more you go back, it's the same story with the Rothschilds. Okay. It's someone who has money that was lending money and funding wars just further back in history when they were still fighting with the fucking sticks and stones. So, and
wasn't Hitler's big thing about the Jewish banking thing was like the interest? It was like you got a banknote and you had to get rid of it. You had to go buy bread. You had to go buy food. You had to go do something with it because the interest, the value of the money in the morning was different than the value of the money in the afternoon, kind of a deal. So you got paid and you had to go fucking spend that shit.
You know, maybe we will find out that week, Adrian.
Well, that was a question. I'm not making a comment. That was
no,
a question.
I'm saying I don't know, but I can promise you this: as the story evolves, he'll be part of the story. Okay. So let's see. JP's dad, Junius, he worked with a fella George Peabody. Okay, in London. Peabody made his fortune on southern cotton picked by enslaved people. Okay, shipped across the Atlantic, insured, financed, and sold. So a couple things that are going to be, you'll notice throughout these stories, religion plays a big piece, so does slavery.
Sure.
So did J.P. Morgan or his family own slaves?
They didn't have to. They made the money off of they guaranteed the shipment. They guaranteed the slaves, the value of the slaves. One got thrown overboard. There was a value that was associated with them. So they made the money off the ships that shipped the slaves over and the profiteering from the bodies themselves.
So no, they did not own them. But now, and also they lived in the North. Harder to own slaves in the North than in the South at this point, right?
But that doesn't mean that you can't benefit from the industry.
There you go. They didn't own them, but they profited off of the industry. So, and I don't know, you could argue which one's worse, whatever. Is it equivalent? All I know is the facts are the facts. Slavery was justified in America by religion too. People don't like to talk about that. Preachers stood at pulpits reading scripture to defend it. God supposedly wanted the economy to run on human misery and bankers in London and America, supposedly. They didn't care what moral arguments were being made as long as the ships kept moving and the ledgers stay full. So Junius grows the family business. He's tied directly to the Rothschilds network through Peabody. And little JP grows up. He's a kid with a fucking silver spoon, bro. He's Donald Trump. We got all the money. You're just gonna follow in our footsteps, right? So it was
who can borrow $1 million from their dad to do anything.
J.P. Morgan probably could have.
And Trump.
So J.P. Morgan's rise. It was not a rag to riches story, Adrian. He didn't start in his garage like Jeff Bezos. He was born on third base already.
Gotcha.
He didn't know how to fucking swing a bat. He's already on third base, okay? During the Civil War, preachers were framing it as a holy battle between God and evil. Morgan was hustling in the shadows. Listen to this fucked up thing. He bought rifles from the government for $350. Defective rifles, by the way. Sold them back for $22, and they would explode in soldiers' hands. That was his idea of a holy war. Find the angle, bleed the system, cash the check. Fucking asshole. Or taking advantage of the situation.
Wait a minute. So, Mike, you have some guns.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to buy them from you for $3.50.
Yep.
Hey, Mike, I got some guns to sell you for $22.
Yep.
Adrian, great deal.
Yeah, great
Maybe
deal.
take them.
Yep.
Wow.
By the way, they're defective.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sure he's not saying that.
No, of course not. So after that war, after the Civil War, so he's already profiting off the Civil War as a younger fella. He scales up railroads, steel, electricity. We've talked about these, the Carnegies.
The Titans of America.
They're all in fucking cahoots. He creates U.S. Steel, the first billion-dollar corporation in America with your boy Carnegie, right? And then when the Panic of 07 hits, it isn't, and this is like, the Panic of 07 is like economy's crashing. You know who saves America?
Yeah.
J.P. fucking Morgan. One man writes checks and bails out the economy. So think about it. That's a different day. But could you imagine the economy crashed today? Like completely crashed. And they didn't go to big banks. Warren Buffett just showed up and went, yo, here's a check. I can take care of it. That goes to show you how much power this motherfucker had.
Right.
Then we talk about the Titanic. I'm not going to go crazy. We did a deep dive on this. But
that was crazy.
So at this point, he's trying to create, J.P. Morgan's trying to create the Federal Reserve. Basically control banking, right?
Sure.
Like at this point, they're still trading fucking silver and gold and whatever. And he wanted to centralize this whole, have a uniform system, right? These banks are in control. The gold's in our bank. We're going to give you this legal tender, this note that says you have the right to whatever, but we're going to control it.
Right.
And to the point where if you don't have our money, you can't buy shit.
And the Federal Reserve, and we is not the federal government.
No.
We is private industry.
Correct.
Which I believe is still that way today.
It still is.
The Federal Reserve is not a government-owned fucking thing.
World, dude. So the Titanic, he owns the company that owns the ship. There were 3 individuals, his biggest rivals, that opposed the Federal Reserve. John Jacob Astor IV, Benjamin Guggenheim. I mean, y'all know the Guggenheim name. It's an insurance company, all kinds of shit. And then Isidore Straus. They're all on board. They were supposed to have some meeting there.
So 3 people, not 4.
3 people, yes. J.P. Morgan was supposed to be on this boat with these individuals. And the boat goes down. J.P. Morgan last minute decides he don't feel good. He don't want to go on the trip. Other eyewitnesses has said that while the Titanic was out to sea, J.P. Morgan was across the pond with his mistress, having fun. He didn't seem under the weather. So,
no, she was nursing him back to health. That's what was going on.
That's right. So the Federal Reserve, believe it or not, is created not too long after in 1913. Washington.
Hold on, we kind of covered this. It wasn't the Titanic.
No, it wasn't.
Exactly.
It was
a sister ship.
Yeah, that's a whole nother fucking deep dive there. So, but he gets what he wants. Creates the Federal Reserve.
So the 3 people specifically, they opposed what he was doing. So he took them out. Supposedly. Allegedly.
Yep.
Took them out and so that so there was no barriers for him to create this thing that he wanted to create. Got it.
Yep. So I'm saying all this to say that at this point, J.P. Morgan is one of the most powerful men in the fucking world.
Right.
Because money controls everything, and he had more money than anyone. You know, they say more money than God. He had more money than God.
Right.
And he becomes, by 1914, Europe is a fucking powder keg, dude. Britain and France, they're going to war. Normally, they would go to the Rothschilds for money because they funded wars. This is where they come back into play. Because of the anti-Semitism, the Rothschilds are now looked at as don't fuck with these motherfuckers. Right. They're spreading propaganda about the Jews, which then hurts their reputation. So they're kind of old news.
Right.
They were still funding the war in the back end.
Right.
But France and Britain didn't want to go directly to them. They didn't want to be associated with them, right? So who do they turn to, Adrian? J.P. Morgan.
Swiss banks.
Yep.
No,
J.P. He's a clean look. He's white. He's Protestant. Okay, so Christianity, a big thing back then, right? Yeah. He's American, and he controlled the supply lines from America. The New World's factory. I mean, the railroads, the steel, electricity, the banks. This motherfucker went from being the son of a guy who worked with the Rothschilds to being bigger than the fucking Rothschilds himself. The Rothschilds fade. Morgan rises. Religion isn't gone. It's the background music to this whole thing. They're still using that to control people. Anti-Semitism poisons Europe. They blame everything on the Jews. Everything. Fucking economy crashes, Jews' fault. Fucking the weather's bad, it's Jews' fault. Preachers bless soldiers marching into slaughter. Faith keeps the masses in line, and finance calls the shots. This is kind of where we're at this point. Morgan's the perfect kingpin because he doesn't have to shout about morality. He just lets other people wave the flags, hold the crosses, and all he does is handle the books, dude. That's it. That's the formula. Same formula used today.
Right.
You really, So by 1914, Morgan's at the peak. The rivals are at the bottom of the Atlantic. Federal Reserve's in his back pocket. The Rothschilds are fading under prejudice and propaganda. Religion's keeping everybody in check, telling people to accept the wars they're sent to fight. And the next piece, there's Sarajevo, maybe. Let's just say there's an assassination that happens. And that assassination helps propel this into something that affects the entire world. It's no longer just France and Britain going at it, okay? So that is the end. To be continued, Adrian, next week. That's our story for the week. That's J.P. Morgan's rise to power. That's how he went from a little... And he also was an ugly-ass motherfucker, by the way. No, dude had a growth on his nose, and she looked the fucking penguin from the... No lie. Look him up. Dude, he was one of the first big examples of looks don't mean shit when you got money.
That's it.
Because everybody wanted a piece of J.P. Morgan, dude, even though he looked like the fucking penguin.
Right.
But this was his rise, dude. He was positioned to control a lot of what happens next. So there you have it. That's what I prepared. That's my story. That's what I'm sticking to. And we will continue that next week. So anyways, Adrian, it's been a fun week here.
Absolutely.
On other stuff. Dude, the more you dig back into history, you realize that, they say those that don't know history are doomed to repeat it or whatnot.
Correct.
Well, I think there's a whole nother layer to that. There's people that do know history and they intentionally recreate it and relive it, and they use strategies that were maybe used in the past to accomplish the same goals today.
Well, and those are the ones that control the history. Now, if for those that don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. But what history are you learning? And are you doomed to repeat it regardless? Because the history that you're learning isn't the real history.
Yep.
So
for next week, here's a statement I will leave you with. I'm going to tell you next week how one bad sandwich run started World War I.
Of course it did.
Of course it did. So we'll find out what that means next week. So Adrian, thanks for coming out.
Absolutely, man.
Guys, thanks for watching. Intern, shout out. Let me know, did you like the new segment? We're going to be doing more of this, whether you like it or not, because I like it. But I have a lot planned. There's a lot of, all bullshit, there's a lot of work that's gone into this, and it is fun to talk about. And I'm trying to make sure that when I do these deep dives, Adrian, to your point, I'm providing not a swayed version of the history, just the history.
Okay.
You decide what you want to do with it. I don't have a dog in the fight because I'm not a Rothschild. I'm not a J.P. Morgan. I'm not Jewish. I'm not Christian. I'm none of that.
All right. You ain't rich.
I ain't rich. I ain't poor. I'm none of it. So I just want to give you at least what I can gather as the facts
Right.
with my little spin on it.